Before fast food and frozen dinners, supper in the hills meant making the most of whatever was on hand. These meals carried families through hard times, filled kitchens with unforgettable smells, and created memories that still live on today. Here are 25 forgotten hillbilly dinners that have slowly faded into history. 1. Soup, beans, and cornbread. This wasn't just dinner, it was the backbone of mountain survival. For generations, soup, beans, and cornbread appeared on Appalachian tables several nights each week. During the Great Depression and long winters, dried beans became one of the few foods that families could store for months without spoilage. Every fall, beans were harvested, dried, and packed away for the cold months ahead. The preparation began before sunrise. Pinto beans soaked overnight before being placed into heavy cast iron pots with onions, water, and a piece of fatback, or salt pork. The beans simmered beside the wood stove for hours, slowly filling the house with a rich and smoky aroma. Meanwhile, cornbread baked in black cast iron skillets, greased with bacon drippings. The crust became golden and crisp, while the center stayed soft and moist. Many mountain families crumbled the cornbread directly into their bowls, allowing it to soak up the flavorful pot liquor. One simple meal could feed a family of 6. Modern restaurants may serve expensive comfort food, but few dishes carry the same memories as a bowl of soup beans beside a piece of warm cornbread. 2. Fried potatoes and onions. Before breakfast skillets became popular in restaurants, mountain families had already mastered one of the most satisfying suppers imaginable. Potatoes and onions stored well throughout the winter, making them staples in nearly every Appalachian home. Root cellars kept potatoes fresh for months, while onions remained usable long after the growing season ended. Thin potato slices were placed into hot bacon grease and cooked slowly over a wood fire. Chopped onions were added later, softening and turning sweet as they browned alongside the potatoes. The smell alone could fill an entire cabin. Some families added bits of ham or bacon when available. Others served the potatoes beside beans or cornbread. After long days spent farming, logging, or working in coal mines, a skillet full of fried potatoes could satisfy even the biggest appetite. The crispy edges, soft centers, and smoky flavor turned 2 simple ingredients into something unforgettable. Many people still remember hearing potatoes sizzle in their grandmother's cast iron skillet long before supper was ready. 3. Tomato gravy and biscuits. If you've never tasted tomato gravy, it may sound unusual today. Mountain families thought otherwise. During the summer months, gardens often produced more tomatoes than anyone could possibly eat. Rather than allowing them to spoil, cooks transformed ripe tomatoes into rich gravies that could stretch a meal and feed an entire family. The preparation began with bacon grease, heating inside a cast iron skillet. Flour was stirred into the hot grease before chopped tomatoes were added. As the tomatoes cooked down, they released their juices and created a thick, savory gravy seasoned with salt, pepper, and sometimes a pinch of sugar. Fresh biscuits were split open and covered with the warm tomato mixture. The buttery bread soaked up every drop. For many families, tomato gravy appeared during the late summer when money was scarce but gardens were overflowing. The bright flavor brought warmth to the table and reminded everyone that better days were still growing outside. 4. Kilt lettuce. This strange name puzzled outsiders for generations. Mountain families knew exactly what it meant. Kilt lettuce referred to fresh greens that had been killed by hot bacon grease. After long winters filled with dried beans and preserved meats, the first lettuce of spring felt like a celebration. Fresh leaf lettuce was gathered from gardens and washed carefully. Meanwhile, bacon fried in a skillet until crisp. Vinegar, salt, and occasionally a spoonful of sugar were added directly to the hot grease. The sizzling mixture was poured over the lettuce. The leaves instantly wilted. Pieces of bacon were scattered throughout the bowl. The result was smoky, tangy, and rich. Kilt lettuce often appeared beside beans, potatoes, or cornbread and provided much-needed freshness after months of winter meals. For many mountain families, this simple dish signaled that spring had finally returned, and after a long winter, that tasted better than almost anything. 5. Poke salad. If prepared incorrectly, this wild plant could make a person sick. Yet for generations, Mountain families considered poke salad one of spring's greatest treasures. Pokeweed grew along fence lines, hillsides, and woodland edges throughout Appalachia. After long winters filled with dried foods and preserved meats, the young green shoots offered one of the first fresh vegetables of the year. But gathering poke required experience. Only the young shoots could be picked safely. The greens had to be boiled, drained, and boiled again to remove their natural toxins. Families passed this knowledge from parents to children, making poke gathering an important spring tradition. After boiling, the greens were fried in bacon grease with onions and pieces of salt pork. The result was rich, smoky, and surprisingly delicious. Poke salad was usually served beside cornbread and beans, creating a meal that celebrated the arrival of warmer weather. For mountain families, this wasn't simply food. It was proof that winter had finally ended. 6. Salmon patties. For people living hundreds of miles from the ocean, canned salmon became a small luxury, and mountain cooks knew exactly how to make it stretch. Salmon patties became popular during the early 1900s when canned fish became affordable enough for rural families. A single can could feed an entire household when combined with crackers, cornmeal, onions, and eggs. The salmon was mixed by hand and formed into small patties. Each one was fried in hot grease until the outside became golden and crispy, while the inside remained tender and flaky. The smell often brought children running into the kitchen. Mashed potatoes, green beans, or fried apples frequently accompanied the meal. Many families reserved salmon patties for Fridays or Sunday evenings when they wanted something that felt special without spending much money. Though simple, these patties provided a welcome change from beans and preserved meats. And for many people, the sound of salmon patties sizzling in a cast iron skillet still brings back memories of home. 7. Leather britches. Beans. Don't let the strange name fool you. These weren't clothing. They were green beans preserved using one of Appalachia's oldest survival methods. During the summer, gardens often produced more beans than families could eat. Without refrigeration, mountain people developed ways to save the harvest for winter. Fresh green beans were strung onto heavy thread using large needles. Long strings of beans hung from rafters, porches, and attic beams where warm air slowly dried them. As the weeks passed, the beans became dark, wrinkled strips that rattled when touched. By winter, the dried beans looked almost like strips of old leather, hence the name. When cold weather arrived, the beans were soaked overnight and cooked slowly with fatback or bacon. The finished dish carried a concentrated flavor that fresh beans could never match. For mountain families, leather britches represented preparation, patience, and survival. Long after gardens disappeared beneath snow, these dried beans continued feeding entire households. 8. Cornbread and milk. Some meals were born from necessity. Others became comfort food. Cornbread and milk somehow became both. After supper, leftover cornbread was often crumbled into bowls and covered with fresh milk or buttermilk. Some families preferred warm milk, while others used cold milk straight from the spring house. A little sugar might be added. Some people preferred salt. The cornbread slowly softened, creating a thick and satisfying mixture. For children, it often became an evening meal before bed. For older adults, it provided a simple supper after a long day's work. During difficult economic times, cornbread and milk allowed families to stretch their food supplies while still filling hungry stomachs. The ingredients were humble, yet countless mountain people remember sitting quietly at kitchen tables with bowls of cornbread and milk while listening to rain against the roof or firewood crackling in the stove. Sometimes the simplest meals create the strongest memories. 9. Fried apples and biscuits. Before breakfast restaurants made fruit toppings fashionable, mountain families were already serving fried apples beside warm biscuits. Apples stored well throughout the winter, making them one of Appalachia's most valuable fruits. Many families kept barrels of apples in cool cellars where they remained edible for months. The apples were peeled and sliced before being cooked slowly in butter, bacon grease, or lard. Brown sugar, cinnamon, and a small amount of water helped create a sweet syrup. As the apples softened, the kitchen filled with the smell of autumn. Fresh biscuits were baked nearby. The warm apples were spooned over split biscuits, allowing the syrup to soak into the bread. Some families served fried apples for breakfast. Others enjoyed them beside pork chops or ham at supper. The combination of sweet fruit and warm biscuits provided comfort during cold winter evenings. Today, many people still remember the smell of fried apples long after the meal itself has been forgotten. 10. Milk toast. This humble meal carried generations through difficult times. When food supplies ran low or illness visited the household, milk toast often appeared on the table. Stale bread was never wasted in the mountains. Slices of bread were toasted until crisp before being placed in bowls. Warm milk was heated on the stove with butter, sugar, or a pinch of salt, depending on family tradition. The hot milk was poured over the toast, softening it into a warm and comforting meal. Children with fevers often ate milk toast. Older family members enjoyed it on cold evenings. During the Great Depression, it provided nourishment when little else was available. Though incredibly simple, milk toast carried emotional significance. It represented care, it represented comfort, and it reminded families that even the smallest meal could provide warmth during hard times. Modern kitchens may overlook dishes like milk toast, but generations of mountain families never forgot it. 11. Potato cakes. Before leftovers became something to throw away, mountain cooks knew exactly how to turn yesterday's supper into today's meal. Potato cakes were born from necessity, but they quickly became a favorite in their own right. Leftover mashed potatoes were mixed with flour, eggs, chopped onions, and sometimes bits of bacon or ham. The mixture was shaped into small patties and fried slowly in a cast-iron skillet until both sides turned golden brown. The outside became crispy. The inside remained soft and creamy. Many families served potato cakes for breakfast alongside eggs, while others enjoyed them at supper with beans or greens. Nothing was wasted. Every spoonful of leftover potatoes had value. Children often fought over the crispiest pieces around the edges of the skillet. For mountain families, potato cakes represented resourcefulness. A meal from the night before could become something entirely new with only a few simple ingredients. Even today, many grandparents still claim potato cakes tasted better the second day. 12. Chicken and slicks. This wasn't ordinary chicken and noodles. It was one of Appalachia's most beloved comfort foods. Chicken and slicks earned its unusual name from the long strips of dough that floated inside the rich broth. These slicks were rolled thin by hand and cut into wide ribbons that absorbed the flavor of the simmering chicken. The preparation began with a whole chicken slowly cooking in a large pot with onions, celery, and herbs. Once the meat became tender, it was removed from the bones and returned to the broth. Meanwhile, flour, water, and salt were mixed into a simple dough. The dough was rolled thin and cut into strips before being dropped into the bubbling broth. As the slicks cooked, they thickened the soup and created a rich, hearty meal. Chicken and slicks often appeared at Sunday dinners, family gatherings, and church suppers. One large pot could feed an entire crowd. The dish provided warmth during winter and comfort during difficult times. For many mountain families, few meals brought people together quite like chicken and slicks. 13. Cracklin bread. When hog killing season arrived, nothing went to waste, not even the smallest pieces of pork. After rendering fat into lard, cooks were left with crispy pieces known as cracklins. Rather than throwing them away, mountain families mixed them into cornbread. The cracklins added salt, flavor, and texture. Cornmeal, buttermilk, eggs, and bacon grease formed the base of the bread. The crunchy cracklins were folded into the batter before everything was poured into a hot cast-iron skillet. As the bread baked, the pork pieces became even crispier. Every bite delivered bursts of smoky flavor. Cracklin bread often accompanied beans, greens, or stews. For hard-working families, it provided valuable calories during long winters and physically demanding work. The smell of cracklin bread baking inside a wood stove could fill an entire cabin. Today, many people have never heard of it, but older generations still remember fighting over the corner pieces. 14. Cabbage and fatback. This simple supper carried countless mountain families through difficult winters. Cabbage stored remarkably well in root cellars, while cured fatback could last for months. Together, they formed one of the most dependable meals in Appalachia. The preparation required little more than a heavy pot. Cabbage was chopped into thick pieces and placed into simmering water with slices of salt-cured fatback. As the pork slowly cooked, it released flavor and richness into the vegetables. The cabbage softened and absorbed every drop. Some families added onions, potatoes, or a small amount of vinegar. Others preferred it plain. Served with cornbread, this meal could feed large families with very little expense. The rich broth left behind was often soaked up with pieces of bread. Though simple, cabbage and fatback represented survival. It proved that a few humble ingredients could sustain families through the coldest months of the year. Modern diets may overlook dishes like this, but mountain families understood their value. 15. Chow and beans. If gardens produced too many vegetables, mountain cooks refused to let them go to waste. That's where Chow came in. This colorful relish combined green tomatoes, cabbage, peppers, onions, and spices inside jars that could last all winter. Every family guarded their own recipe. The vegetables were chopped, salted, and cooked with vinegar and spices before being sealed in jars. The result was tangy, sweet, and slightly spicy. Chow often appeared beside soup beans and cornbread. A spoonful could brighten an entire bowl. During long winters, when fresh vegetables were impossible to find, opening a jar of Chow brought the taste of summer back to the table. Families proudly shared their recipes at church gatherings and community meals. Some recipes included mustard, others relied heavily on peppers. No two versions tasted exactly alike. For many mountain people, Chow wasn't simply a condiment. It was summer preserved inside a jar. 16. Beanhole, beans. This cooking method looked more like building a campfire than making supper. Yet it produced some of the richest beans in the mountains. Large pots filled with beans, onions, molasses, and salt pork were lowered into holes lined with hot stones and glowing coals. The pits were covered with dirt, allowing the beans to cook slowly underground. The process often lasted all night. By morning, the beans had become thick, smoky, and deeply flavorful. Community gatherings frequently featured beanhole beans because the method allowed large quantities to cook without constant attention. Families gathered around the fire while stories were shared and children played nearby. When the pots were finally uncovered, the smell alone attracted hungry crowds. The beans carried flavors impossible to achieve through ordinary cooking. For many mountain communities, beanhole beans represented patience. 17. Squirrel and dumplings. When winter settled over the mountains and meat supplies began running low, families often turned to the forests surrounding their homes. Squirrels were plentiful throughout Appalachia, and hunting them became an important skill passed down from fathers to sons. 2 or 3 squirrels could provide enough meat for an entire meal. The meat was cleaned, cut into pieces, and browned in bacon grease before being covered with water and simmered for hours. Wild onions and simple seasonings added flavor as the broth slowly developed richness. Meanwhile, dumplings were made from flour, salt, and water. The dough was rolled thin and cut into strips before being dropped into the bubbling broth. As the dumplings cooked, they absorbed the savory flavors and thickened the liquid into a hearty gravy. The finished dish featured tender meat, soft dumplings, and a rich broth that warmed families during cold mountain evenings. One pot could feed several people. For many Appalachian families, squirrel and dumplings represented survival, skill, and the ability to make the most of what the mountains provided. 18. Dandelion greens. Most people today see dandelions as weeds. Mountain families saw supper. After long winters filled with dried beans and preserved foods, the first dandelion greens offered fresh nutrition when gardens had not yet begun producing. Women and children gathered the young leaves from fields and hillsides before the plants became bitter. The greens were washed carefully and boiled to remove some of their sharp flavor. After draining, they were fried with bacon grease, onions, and pieces of salt pork. The finished dish carried a slightly bitter taste balanced by the rich flavor of pork. Dandelion greens supplied important vitamins after months of winter eating. For families who depended upon the land, these plants represented the arrival of spring and the promise of new harvests. Nothing growing in the fields was overlooked. Everything had value. Even the humble dandelion helped carry mountain families through difficult seasons. 19. Burgu. This wasn't simply stew, it was community in a pot. Burgu often appeared at church gatherings, political rallies, family reunions, and community celebrations throughout the mountains. Large kettles sat above open fires while neighbors took turns stirring the mixture. The ingredients depended entirely upon what was available. Chicken, beef, rabbit, pork, squirrel, or venison might all find their way into the pot. Corn, potatoes, tomatoes, onions, beans, and cabbage slowly cooked together for hours. As the ingredients broke down, the stew became thick and rich. The smell could travel across an entire valley. People gathered long before the food was ready. Stories were shared, music played, children ran through the crowd. When the burgu was finally served, everyone ate together. No two batches ever tasted exactly alike. Each family contributed something different. The dish became a reflection of the community itself. And perhaps that is why burgu remains one of Appalachia's most cherished traditions. 20. Fried mush. This simple dish began with cornmeal and ended with one of the mountain's favorite breakfasts and suppers. Cornmeal mush was cooked in water until thick and smooth. After cooling overnight, it became firm enough to slice. The slices were fried in hot bacon grease until the outside turned crispy and golden, while the inside remained soft. Some families served fried mush with sorghum syrup or honey. Others preferred butter, gravy, or molasses. The contrast between the crunchy crust and creamy center made it especially satisfying. During hard times, fried mush allowed families to stretch inexpensive cornmeal into multiple meals. Children often ate it before school. Adults carried the energy into long days of labor. Though incredibly simple, fried mush demonstrated how mountain cooks transformed ordinary ingredients into something memorable. Many people who grew up eating it still describe the sound of mush, frying in cast iron, as the sound of home. 21. Sorghum biscuits. When sugar was expensive and difficult to obtain, mountain families found sweetness elsewhere. Sorghum became one of Appalachia's most treasured syrups. During the fall, sorghum cane was crushed to extract its juice. The liquid was boiled for hours until it thickened into a dark golden syrup with a rich, earthy sweetness. Fresh biscuits baked in cast iron skillets often accompanied the syrup. The warm biscuits were split open and covered with butter before thick sorghum was poured over the top. The syrup slowly soaked into the bread. The flavor was deep, slightly smoky, and far different from modern pancake syrups. Many families considered sorghum and biscuits a special treat during harvest season. The meal required months of work to produce the syrup. Neighbors frequently gathered to help with sorghum cooking days, turning the process into a community event. For mountain families, sorghum represented both sweetness and hard work. Every spoonful carried the taste of autumn. 22. Chicken and cornbread dressing. Long before boxed stuffing appeared in grocery stores, mountain families made their own dressing from scratch. Cornbread was baked several days ahead and allowed to dry. The crumbled bread was mixed with onions, celery, broth, sage, and shredded chicken. The mixture was packed into baking pans and cooked until the top became golden and crisp. The inside remained moist and flavorful. Though often associated with holidays today, many Appalachian families served chicken and dressing throughout the year. Sunday dinners, church gatherings, and family reunions frequently featured large pans of dressing. The aroma of sage and cornbread filled the kitchen. Children waited for the crispy corners. Adults fought over leftovers. The dish represented family gatherings and special occasions. Even today, many people judge dressing by whether it tastes like their grandmother's recipe. Few foods carry stronger memories. 23. Apple stack cake. No mountain celebration felt complete without this remarkable dessert. Apple stack cake often appeared at weddings, family gatherings, and community events throughout Appalachia. Thin cake layers were baked separately. Meanwhile, dried apples were cooked slowly with cinnamon, molasses, and spices until they formed a thick filling. The layers were stacked one upon another with the apple mixture spread between them. Some cakes contained 6 layers, others contained 10 or more. After assembly, the cake rested for several days. The filling softened the cake layers, creating a rich dessert unlike anything found in modern bakeries. Many wedding guests brought individual layers to contribute to the finished cake. The dessert became a symbol of community support and cooperation. Sweet, spiced, and deeply comforting, apple stack cake represented far more than dessert. It represented people coming together, and that may have been its most important ingredient. 24. Hoover stew. This wasn't simply a meal, it was survival during some of America's darkest years. Named after President Herbert Hoover during the Great Depression, Hoover stew became the answer to empty cupboards and shrinking paychecks. Families throughout Appalachia and rural America found themselves making dinner from whatever ingredients remained in the kitchen. Potatoes, onions, cabbage, carrots, and turnips often formed the base. If a family had a ham bone, bacon grease, or a small piece of salt pork, it went into the pot. Everything simmered together in water with salt, pepper, and whatever herbs could be found nearby. The result wasn't fancy. The broth was often thin. The ingredients changed from one home to another, but the stew filled hungry stomachs. Neighbors frequently shared ingredients when supplies ran low. A few potatoes from one family and an onion from another could help feed an entire household. Hoover stew represented the determination of people who refused to quit during difficult times. Many families who lived through the Depression never forgot the taste, not because it was delicious, but because it carried them through years they never expected to survive. 25. Corn pone. Before sliced bread arrived in mountain stores, corn pone had already become one of Appalachia's most important foods. This simple bread fed generations. Cornmeal was often cheaper than flour, and many families grew their own corn each year. After grinding the dried kernels, women mixed the coarse meal with water, buttermilk, salt, and occasionally a little bacon grease. The dough was shaped by hand into thick cakes. Some were baked beside open fires, others cooked directly inside cast iron skillets placed over hot coals. The outside became hard and golden. The inside stayed dense and filling. Corn pone wasn't soft like modern cornbread. It was designed to satisfy hunger and last for days. Farmers carried pieces into the fields. Hunters packed it into their bags. Children ate it with milk before bed. Some families crumbled it into beans, while others spread it with sorghum. For many mountain people, corn pone represented self-reliance. Everything needed to make it could come directly from the family farm. Today, store-bought bread fills grocery shelves. But many older Appalachians still believe nothing compares to a piece of hot corn pone fresh from a cast iron skillet. These forgotten hillbilly dinners were never designed to impress anyone. They weren't created by famous chefs or served inside expensive restaurants. They came from wood stoves, gardens, smokehouses, and kitchens where families learned to make something from almost nothing. Every bowl of beans, every skillet of potatoes, and every piece of cornbread carried stories of hard work, survival, and community. These meals fed coal miners after long shifts underground. They warmed families during harsh winters. They brought neighbors together around church tables and Sunday dinners. Many of these dishes have slowly disappeared as modern life moved faster and convenience replaced tradition. But the memories remain. The smell of bacon grease in a cast iron skillet, the sound of beans simmering beside a wood stove, the sight of grandparents gathered around a kitchen table. Perhaps these forgotten dinners remind us that good food was never really about expensive ingredients. It was about family, it was about resourcefulness, and it was about making something meaningful from whatever you had. Which of these forgotten hillbilly dinners would you actually try? And which ones do you remember from your own family table? Let us know in the comments below.